The military wing of St. Matthew's Medical Center was overflowing with wounded soldiers after a dangerous overseas mission. Doctors and nurses rushed from one bed to another while helicopters continued delivering casualties. Among the medical staff was Emily Carter, a quiet nurse in her early 30s with blonde hair tied in a neat bun. Dressed in simple blue scrubs, she never sought attention. She worked longer hours than anyone else, comforted frightened patients, and treated every injured soldier with kindness and respect. Despite her dedication, the hospital's new administrator, Victoria Reynolds, believed Emily was too quiet and not professional enough for such a high-profile military hospital. When Victoria noticed Emily spending extra time with critically injured soldiers instead of completing paperwork, she became furious. In front of doctors, nurses, patients, and military personnel, she pointed at Emily and shouted, "You're finished! Turn in your badge and leave this hospital." Immediately, the emergency ward fell silent. Emily didn't argue. She calmly removed her ID badge, thanked her co-workers for the opportunity to serve, and prepared to leave. Many nurses looked heartbroken, but no one dared challenge the administrator. As Emily walked toward the exit, a badly wounded Special Forces sergeant lying on a stretcher suddenly opened his eyes. His head was wrapped in bandages and one leg was heavily injured. The moment he saw Emily, his expression changed. With surprising strength, he grabbed the medic beside him and whispered, "Stop her. Don't let her leave." The doctors looked confused. The soldier struggled to sit up despite his injuries. Pointing directly at Emily, he shouted, "That woman saved my life, and the lives of my entire team." The entire emergency ward froze. Victoria frowned, convinced the injured soldier was confused because of his wounds. But before anyone could respond, several elite soldiers standing nearby immediately turned toward Emily, their faces filled with recognition. One after another, they stood at attention. The entire emergency ward stood, frozen as the wounded Special Forces sergeant struggled to sit upright on his stretcher. Ignoring his own pain, he raised a trembling hand toward Emily Carter. "Nobody touches that nurse," he said firmly. "Without her, none of us would be alive." The room fell silent. Hospital Administrator Victoria Reynolds laughed nervously. "Sergeant, you're recovering from serious injuries. I think you're confused." The soldier looked directly into her eyes. "I'm not confused." He pointed at Emily again. 3 years ago, during Operation Silent Ridge, our team was trapped behind enemy lines. We were surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. Emily Carter volunteered to enter the combat zone as a military trauma medic. The emergency ward remained silent as the hospital director slowly closed the classified military file. His hands trembled while he looked from the documents to Emily Carter. Every page confirmed the same unbelievable truth. The quiet nurse everyone thought was ordinary had once served as one of the military's most respected trauma medics. She had received the nation's highest medical honors but had never spoken a single word about her past. The 4-star general stepped forward and addressed the entire hospital. "Lieutenant Emily Carter never wanted fame," he said. After completing her final classified mission, she turned down promotions and medals because she believed her greatest duty was caring for ordinary people in civilian hospitals. She asked us to keep her identity secret. Doctors and nurses stared at Emily with newfound respect. Many remembered how she had stayed long after her shift ended to comfort frightened patients, donated money for families who couldn't afford medicine, and volunteered for every difficult assignment without asking for recognition. The hospital director slowly walked toward Emily. "Nurse Carter," he said with deep regret, "I owe you a sincere apology. We judged your quiet nature as weakness, when it was actually the strength of a true leader." He then turned toward Administrator Victoria Reynolds. "Your leadership has embarrassed this hospital." Security officers immediately stepped forward. "Victoria Reynolds," the director announced, "effective immediately. You are removed from your position, pending a full investigation into your conduct and abuse of authority." Victoria's face turned pale. As security escorted her toward the exit, she stopped and looked back at Emily. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Emily simply nodded. "I hope you learn to see people for who they truly are." The 4-star general smiled proudly. He looked at Emily and said, "Lieutenant Carter, the Department of Defense has one final request." Emily looked up. "The nation needs someone to train the next generation of military trauma medics. The entire hospital waited silently for her answer. The hospital fell completely silent as everyone waited for Emily Carter's answer. The four-star general stood proudly before her, while the wounded soldiers watched with hope in their eyes. Emily smiled gently before speaking. "General, serving my country has been the greatest honor of my life," she said. "But every patient who walks through these hospital doors deserves the same care and compassion as every soldier I treated on the battlefield. If I can continue helping people here while also training the next generation of military medics, I will gladly accept." The general smiled and shook her hand. "You've just accepted one of the most important medical leadership positions in the country." The hospital staff erupted into applause. The director then stepped forward with a new employment contract. "Emily Carter," he announced, "effective today, you are promoted to Director of Emergency and Military Trauma Services. This hospital needs your leadership, your experience, and your compassion." Emily accepted the position with humility. Over the following months, St. Matthew's Medical Center changed completely. Emily introduced advanced emergency training, improved patient care, and created programs to support both civilians and wounded veterans. Young nurses looked up to her, not because of her military medals, but because she treated every patient with kindness and every coworker with respect. The wounded Special Forces sergeant eventually made a full recovery. Before leaving the hospital, he found Emily in the same emergency ward where everything had changed. He smiled and said, "You saved my life twice, once on the battlefield, and once by reminding everyone what a true hero looks like." Emily smiled warmly. A hero is simply someone who chooses to help when others need it most. As the sun set outside the hospital, Emily walked through the same hallway where she had almost lost her job. This time, doctors, nurses, patients, and soldiers greeted her with respect and gratitude. She had never asked for recognition, yet she had earned the admiration of everyone around her through courage, humility, and service. Never judge someone by their appearance, job title, or quiet personality. The strongest heroes are often the ones who never ask for attention. They simply keep helping others when it matters most.